So Mel, Justin, and Garrett over at the Rad Pack has issued a community challenge of the Rad 9 movies that scared us. So this is my submission into that community challenge, and most of these are going to be movies that came from my childhood because I think that was the time that movies really grabbed a hold of my imagination and scared me the most. Some of these might not seem really scary when I talk to you about them, but just keep in mind that I was pretty young when I was watching a lot of these. And I got to tell you, after I saw Mel's video first, I was getting my list all ready. And then I watched Garrett and Justin. And then I'm like, crap, people keep on picking these movies that I had all set up to go and thought were going to be a little bit unique. So you're going to hear some repeats here, but that's okay. That just means they're great, scary movies and just hit us all the same way with the themes and getting to our imagination and really getting us riled up. So we're going to start off the list. I guess the first four. Three of them I have copies of. One I do not have a physical copy of, but the first four are going to be from early childhood. So I'm going to say I saw most of these when they first released, some in the theaters, when I was anywhere between the ages of 7 and 9. So just keep that in mind. So first, I know this one's already been pulled before, but yes, believe it or not, Walt Disney got me scared. This is The Return to Oz. This was one I remember seeing in the theater with my mom, and it was such a departure from The Wizard of Oz. First of all, everything was messed up in the land of Oz, and the thing that always just stuck with me was there was this princess or queen or whatever that had all these decapitated heads basically lined up in this like trophy room and could go out and pick which head to put on. And I just remember this one scene that they walk in and all the heads start screaming. And I still to this day remember looking over at my mom and was like, what in the world did you bring me to watch? So number one, and these are not in any particular order, but we're starting off with Return to Oz. So not to break any stride here, but believe it or not, Disney, they made it on the list twice. This is one I had to go back and revisit again because I remember it scaring me to death when I was young. I think the parents just saw Walt Disney on the VHS tape and thought, we're good to go. We'll sit the kids down to watch this. And no, this one gave me nightmares. So Something Wicked This Way Comes. This movie, it is not for kids of that age. So I'm like saying like between 7 and 9 years old. I just recently rewatched this. It had been a long time. And there were so many things about this that scared me. There was, sorcery, witchcraft. There was the carnival with the creepy people. There was death. I mean, there was a decapitation scene of a kid. There was, even if it was a vision, and ghosts, goblins, whatever, scared me to death. And little known fact, I thought it was kind of funny when I was going back and looking back through this. One of the witches that scared me the most in this was actually Pam Grier. So it's kind of funny fact, but I guess Pam Grier was in Something Wicked This Way Comes. So moving along, this might be a little bit of a cheat. I know it's not a movie, but it's a mini series, and I'm going to count this because when this came on to network TV, I couldn't believe what I was watching. And it was one of those things that I think I don't know, my parents just left the TV on, what have you, but I remember watching this week to week and scaring me to death. I was intrigued, but it was one of those things that would scare you, but I wanted to keep on coming back and watching it. And it was the miniseries V. This thing was something that really caught my attention. I always was one of those kids that was looking up at the stars, wondering if there's things out there. I love science fiction, reading books, comic books, things like that. So this was right up my wheelhouse. It was one of those that where the aliens come into town. Are they here for good? Are they here for bad? We don't know. And I don't think I'm going to give anything away. There's a picture on the back of it, and I think all the trailers show it. But some of those scenes when you really figure out what they truly are and the fake flesh is getting ripped away and you see what's underneath, that stayed with a little kid. So coming in there is V, the miniseries. One I don't have a physical copy of that also I remember at that very young age scaring me was The Day After. This one, I'm going to try to put a picture up of the cover art for it, but this is one I remember them showing us in elementary school. So keep in mind, I was born in the 70s, you know, childhood ages in the 80s. And this is a time where the US and Russia had the Cold War going on. There was the nuclear arm race. And there was always this tension and a little bit of a fear of, what could happen if one did something over the other. And we were shown this movie, and it's basically taken part in a rural country community, which was like I grew up in. It goes through a nuclear war and dealing with everything that comes after that. So the people, the sickness, the death, everything. And it's just one of those things I still to this day was kind of surprised they show this in school, but that's one of those things. I think they liked showing us movies that would like make us cry. There was like this and Where the Red Fern Grows. Horrible to show little kids. So moving along, another one that this was one, I think it was my first true horror movie that I saw. I grew up in the country. It was in a time where we did not have cable out there. That satellite was not an option, but I had a cousin that lived in the city, and I would get to go stay with him, hang out. We were pretty close in age, and they had cable. So one of the things was we would usually camp out in the living room. Everybody would go to sleep. They would think we were asleep, but then we would wake up and we'd flip on HBO. And one of the early movies I remember seeing was Night of the Living Dead. This now classic, I still love it. But again, I couldn't tell you what age I was, but man, young elementary, watching this, it just, I don't know. The rest of the night, I couldn't go to sleep because I would hear creaks and cracks in the house, something rustling outside, and man, I'm thinking there's a zombie coming in after me. So this is one that really stuck with me. Like I said, it scared me to death as a kid. I still love it. I like to go back and revisit it. And so Night of the Living Dead. Another one I'll also thank my cousin for exposing me to with that HBO subscription. This was another one that I know has been said before, but the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This is one that I know people say this all the time, but really the movie has this feel of this dark, gritty, dirty, just grungy feel to it. And there's just scenes from this movie that would always stick with me. And I know this was mentioned already before, but the scene in the van towards the beginning, the guy cutting up his hand, burning the picture. There's scenes of Leatherface charging in the room through the door. The scene of the lady getting hung by the meat hook going through her back. I mean, every time I think about that, it gives me cringes, and I I don't know, just kind of shrug up there a little bit thinking about it. But that's another one, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, always freaks me out. Another one as a kid that I remember seeing that would scare me was Poltergeist. This is one, I don't know why, I never watched the thing completely through forever. But there was the scene, and I know everybody always talks about it, but the scene with the TV and the static. So the age I am, every single night on network TV, you'd get through the news, you'd go through the reruns, it would play the national anthem, and then it would go to static. So there were so many nights where the TV was left on. I'd maybe fall asleep and I'd wake up hearing that static after watching this movie. Scared me to death. So there were so many times where I was like, I just made sure that TV was shut off before I was going to bed. Because if I heard that static, I started thinking about scenes from this movie. So we're going to go with Poltergeist as another one. Now, another one I know has already been mentioned before. And like I said, that means they're great, scary movies. And they stand the test of time if there's so many people that will name them. But Alien has got to be one that's on my list. For the same reasons other people have said before. The face hugger sucking onto people's faces and implanting, down in the person, and the chest burst scene. Those are things that always stick with you. And I also remember like many times playing pranks on people. We would have sleepovers and watch this. And if you ever remember hot water bottles, people would have these big rubber hot water bottles. You fill it with hot water to put on a sore back or things like that. There was times where we would watch this movie. People would be falling asleep. And when you have that water bottle and it's not filled up, it's kind of heavy. It's kind of flexible. You kind of get a little bit wet and you just kind of slap it down on somebody's face when they're sleeping. And believe me, you got a couple screams out of it during the night. So Alien is another one that goes on the list. And the final one I'm going to have is another classic. I'm sure many other people will have this on their list, but Jaws. This is a movie that I think just through the music, the suspense that it builds up, not seeing that monster coming after you for so much of the movie, just getting glimpses, whether it's through their perspective or others, it just pulls you in, it sucks you in. And I don't know how many times, even with, we had family members that had pools that we'd always get together with all the family to swim in the summer. Down in the deep end, it'd get a little dark down at the bottom. There was a couple times after seeing this movie, I did not want to go in the deep end if I could not see the bottom of the pool. I was one of those things that I think just in your mind, your feet are dangling down there and you're just waiting for something to come nip at the toes. And so Jaws goes on that too. So that's my list for my Rad 9 movies that scared me. Thank you very much to Mel, Justin, and Garrett for putting this out to everybody. And I'll link all their information in my video as well. Please go check out their reviews. They're much more entertaining than me, and just a great people to follow and catch all the content that they're putting out. So thanks again, and we'll talk to you.